heard that saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. In storytelling, it's both what you say and how you say it. And specifically in narration, it's who says it and how they say it. Voice or point of view, that is who's telling the story, is a necessary consideration of any long-form story, nonfiction or fiction. Voice engages your readers, shapes your story. It creates emotion, tempo, mood, and tone. But without the right consideration, voice used poorly will cause confusion and lack of clarity. What you say, or better yet, who says it and how they say it, is the crux of narration, of good storytelling. As authors, we want to create compelling characters and worlds that engage our readers and keep them turning pages. Unfortunately, many authors have a vague understanding of the who part of narration and little understanding of the how part of narration. Hi, I'm Carmen Cady, author and entrepreneur. If you're new to the writing industry and are seeking practical steps to jumpstart your writing to publishing journey, this is the right place, where you'll gain expert level advice on writing and publishing and everything in between. Over the course of 3 episodes, I'm going to be talking about some fundamentals of storytelling. And in today's video, we're diving into POV, or point of view. POV is someone's perspective, opinion, and judgment on a subject matter. POV signals to the reader who's telling the story. It's whose opinion and observation is being conveyed, and how we as the reader experience the author, characters, and the world. And like I alluded, without clarity of POV, the story will lack cohesion and will confuse your readers. Simply put, without a clear POV, the reader will stop reading your work. When you begin conceptualizing your story, whatever your process, you need to determine who is telling the story. And generally speaking, this is done before you start writing. Perhaps when you're storyboarding or outlining if you're a plotter, or for a pantser, when you have a character and story loosely in your mind. If you're not sure if you're a plotter or pantser, be sure to check out my video on plotting and pantsing in my video library. The primary voice is the person driving the story, often your main character, but sometimes someone else is doing the driving, like the author or multiple characters. Such is the case in a contemporary romance where there are usually 2 main characters. However, in stories with multiple voices, there is still a primary voice, who the story is ultimately about, their internal and external motivations, and the resolution of their conflicts. I have a book series with multiple points of views featured in different chapters. However, there's only one protagonist or main character, and it's his story, his conflicts, motivations, and obstacles that are driving the plot forward. Some things to consider when determining points of view: the genre, arc of the story, plot, character motivations, and objectives of the chapter or scene. For instance, if your story follows the hero's journey archetype, whoever the hero is the one telling the story. There are 3 primary points of view. They are first, second, and third person narration. There's also author narration, and I'll just touch on that a little. Let's review each. First person narration is telling the story from the I, me, myself point of reference. It is subjective in nature. It comes from the internal me position. Let's look at an example. My gaze darts between 3 doors, numbered sequentially. Each beckons for my attention. The choice grows heavier as time slips away. I'm not partial to any of the options before me, but with 10 seconds left, my hand juts out, gripping the middle door's cold brass. I turn the handle left, pull, and go inside. In first-person narration, the reader sees, hears, and feels what the character is seeing, hearing, and feeling. The next point of view, and I'm going to skip second person for now, is third-person narration. Third person is where the point of view refers to themselves by name and uses he and she pronouns as a point of reference. Here's an example. Adeline stood contemplating 3 options, 3 possibilities, 3 doors looming like thunder in the distant sky. She didn't find any choice appealing, but time wasn't on her side. The storm was coming, and Adeline needed to choose now. Here, Adeline is telling the story. She's contemplating her options. We know how she feels. We know what our obstacles are, time and the storm. The next point of view, second person narration, the writer uses you as the subject. You, the reader, becomes the point of reference. Here's an example. You have one choice to make, but three options, three doors before you looming like thunderclouds. One wrong choice and life as you know it will change. Time presses in like a weight on your shoulders, forcing your hand. Which one will it be? Second person narration is immersive and personal. The reader is having the experience, and when done well, it can be moving and provocative. An example of second person done well is in N.K. Jemisin's The Fifth Season, where there is instant immersion. I'll give you a little warning. Second person isn't easy to pull off, especially for the novel's entirety. It becomes too personal, too close, especially with turbulent emotions. But it's daring, and I like daring. Leave a comment below if you know another book where second person narration is done well. The difference between the 3 points of view is psychic distance. We're slightly removed from the internal experience. In part 3 of this series, I talk about immediacy and distance in narration, which you can find here, or definitely in a link below. Another point of view to be aware of is author narration. This is where the author's point of view drives the story. Often this point of view can be found in opening scenes, backstory, or in world building. So typically, unless it's an autobiography, the author won't be the one driving the story. Your main characters will be. First and third person narration are points of views that authors use most often. A question I hear authors ask is if they can switch POVs in a story. I mentioned I have a series with varying points of view. So the answer is yes, but it must be done thoughtfully. What do I mean by this? First, switching points of view in a scene or chapter is jarring to the reader. This is called head hopping, and doing so confuses your reader. Without some sort of demarcation, such as a chapter break between points of view, signaling to the reader there's a change in who's talking, it'll pull the reader out of the story. It's disruptive, like a jolt of electricity to the system. However, I have read novels where the author seamlessly moves from one voice to another in a chapter without a break, but it's done sparingly, and I emphasize again, seamlessly, so as to not pull the reader out of the experience. I think this is tricky and probably not for the novice writer. Secondly, using more than one POV can make it difficult for readers to emotionally invest in your story. Readers need a hero, even if it's an anti-hero. They need someone to root for or root against, and they need to know who that is. If the story's primary driver isn't identified early on and emotional investment isn't created, a reader won't have a reason to care about the characters and therefore will stop reading your book. However, having several voices throughout a novel can add to the reader's experience. If you only have one POV throughout, like in life, the reader only has one perspective to rely on, and that perspective is subjective and prone to bias and misunderstandings. So yes, you can switch, but keep in mind the reader's experience is your priority. To summarize our discussion on point of view, before you sit down to write, be clear about who's telling your story. That's imperative. Whichever POV you choose, be sure to be consistent. Storytelling is like making a cake. There are many ingredients. Missing one step, like a confusing POV, is a sure guarantee your cake won't rise. That's all I have today on POV. Be sure to tune in to part 2 of this series, where I talk about using verb tenses in narration, and part 3, where I talk about immediacy and distance in narration. If you need in-depth assistance during your writing to publishing journey, be sure to check out my affordable consultation services via my website, www.carmencady.com. The link is below. And there's only one thing left for you to do. Click the like button, the notification bell to receive up-to-date content, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much.